So this is the last of the long ones. The others will be much shorter and a whole different tonal quality. This one is Peter Looks Back. And I've thought much over the years about Christ just saying, come on, boys, and they just dropped their nets and away they went. When my wife threw that last hard word at me, she was right about my leaving her with nothing but an aging boat, 3 good nets, and 8 children. I deserved all the words, and stones too, if she had chosen to throw them. But I went anyway, and the guilt I dragged was heavier than any boat heaved through deep sand. But I had to go. Andrew introduced us. Andrew all excited because he had found the Messiah. I went because I wanted to see a man who could make an idiot out of Andrew. So Andrew took me to Rebecca's place near the boat moorings. We had to wait a while, time for a little wine and some pottage. Then he came in with his hair unoiled and poking out like a blowfish's spines. Stood for a moment and then came straight at us, his face alive like wet wood. And Andrew jumping up, this is Simon, he says. And I blurted out, it was good to meet a king who needed new shoes. He smiled that little sideways smile I learned to know so well. And it's good to meet a man whose hands are hard as rock, he said. We had a good laugh and sat down to more wine and some fine talk. It was an easy beginning. It was like seeing a young boy with possibilities, and you're going to get to teach him, one who will learn quick how to fish, how the fish run, the direction of the wind, and exactly when to cast a net. At the same time, somebody who protects you while you teach. Oh, we jawed on for a while and cracked a few jokes about the rabbi and a Roman officer. And that was about it until we were leaving. And his hand caught my shoulder. He turned me around like a father turns his son around when he is ready to say his mind. It scared me a little when that happened. And then, just as matter of fact as you please, you are Peter, he said. And I wanted to say, no, you have me confused. But he continued, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. He emphasized hell, and my knees went weak. So I went home to set things straight. Oh, she wept through grief, anger, and then fear. I could see it all over her face. The children running around crying, the 2 older boys beginning to realize what was happening. But I had taught them well. Now they were on their own. Swim or sink, food for the family or starvation. So I walked away with words stinging my back. That was a good while ago. And of course, I have kept up with the family, but haven't sold a single fish since I left. The boys do all right, and their mother is almost wild. The girl's taking care of the house. It's best not to think about some things too much. It's a fact, though. I couldn't have got away from him. What choice does a man have? I'll just have to plain out say it. I love him. Plain and simple. I love him. And I preach his church, even though he left years ago. It gets harder and harder to make the long trips, though. I doubt I'll be going to the east again. Their food is hard on the stomach, and the feet just don't move like they used to. But each morning, when the cock crows, life pours through this body like fire. I'm up and out on the streets Wherever I turn, I still feel the print of His hand on my shoulder. I am His rock. I carry His keys. I live in the hope of resurrection. I die standing on my head out of pure love. I am His rock. Okay. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Good time for anybody to stand up if they need to and relax their body. Any questions on this set of works? No? Okay, I guess it's pretty obvious then of what we were doing. On becoming, as I was mentioning earlier, this is a book. It's much too large, really. It scares people. It's like a Sears and Roebuck catalog, but you don't have to read it all at once. It probably take one a day, and you take him through most of the year. And it gives insights on becoming, how things become, people become, we become, civilization becomes. Becoming who we are. The little prologue is a poem. You're all pretty much aware of Michelangelo and the statue work that he did and all the artwork that he did. He wore his shoes sometimes for months until they rotted off of his feet, but they were made out of good dog hide that's very pliable and so forth. And all the way up through now, I suppose in the higher echelons of society, ladies' ballroom slippers are made of dog hide. So they can walk gracefully, this sort of thing. But that has nothing to do with the poem. Michelangelo did not find God when he cut cadavers open from neck to groin. What he found were guts and bones and sinews. And that was what he was after. He, there, unlawful at night, within the light of a candle, his hands stinking. When Michelangelo held a hard hammer and sharp chisel, and his bones and guts and sinews pounded the fine white marble with the touch of God, the remains of the dead took on a sort of life. Human forms of such perfection emerged in a cloud of white chips and dust. And still, the question of God. That one little man, dust-covered, paint-coated, creating like no other. He, God's own creature, like all the rest, becoming, always becoming into what he was. So that's where we all are, friends, from my point of view. I'm moving into the body of this, and I'll read 4 or 5 poems here. But the first one goes back to the notion that we all live inside of story. This church has an incredible story. It lives in the lives of so many people, certainly those people who came here as parishioners and the people of the town for whom it has always been sort of a beacon, a landmark. And you know, whenever we lose local landmarks, we lose the integrity and character and life of a place. But this is how often we gather the stories, or at least it did when I was a child. And I don't think it's changed much. You may have televisions, and they're always working on those little gadgets they have in their hands. But let me tell you, they're listening to everything. I found out more about sex when I was around there pretending to be working or playing with something, and those women snapping those beans, and you could tell by the rhythm of the way they snapped those beans and strung those things what was going on. I learned a lot about rhythm in those days, you see. But this one An old gentleman, and again, in this book I play a lot with musical terms in the titles, and the titles initially don't seem to have much to do, or a great deal to do with the body, but at least it sets the mind to working and so forth, and I think you'll catch the thing that doesn't quite make sense in this title, but it will when we get into this. One of the references I make is, we see the ruins of Rome and Greek, and the pedestal over the door falls, and it has all the letters in it. The U's look like V's and so forth. So here it is. We're sitting on the porch. We're all gathered around. I think here you said it took 6 people the other night when your family was having a little party and drinking, sipping a little wine to remember a person's name, and you told 500 stories trying to reach the center of what the name of that person was. And, and that's the way it happens. That's the way we carry on. Listen, children, the gentlest rain falls this evening like silver threads through black silk. Do you hear it? You must remember this sound, because it will not sound like this to you ever again, nor its smell drifting through wet leaves, or the security of your lives sitting here drowsily after dinner on the porch, listening to the elders wend their way back to where you are now through the stories you will remember parts of only. But the fragments, like partial inscriptions on broken pediments, will be elements upon which you build the myths of your lives, of your living lives, and foundations of things you cannot dream of yet. Listen to the rain. Smell its fragrance. Hear the stories falling upon your sleepy ears. Adagio of a winter journey. Adagio of a winter journey. And I'm reading this because when I wrote it, it was for my daughter. And she and her family are in England now, and her husband has taken a job, and they will be there probably 10 years if things work out. And by the law of averages, I shall be dead by the time that they should come back to the place. My granddaughter has never heard me give a reading. It has been years, decades, since my daughter has. And so you are helping me here today to make a recording that they will someday hear the sound of Pappy's voice. The moon is no more than a stroke from a silver pen in the smallest of night's hours here in the cold of winter. But as I walk through the house, look into the sky through the windows, it is you who fills the landscape with silver. Images of your small feet running through the snowy field, and your voice equal to the sweet high song of the little brown wren. For your presence in my life, like any old pagan, serious about his shrine and his duty, I bring all the treasures of my heart and lay them upon the earth with blessings and prayers in the fire of the universe. And a poem that kind of follows up on that people seem to like, and I too am fond of this. Page 102. Children, as we all were at one time, we had secrets. And we didn't tell those secrets to anyone. Well, I've lost my place here. It is winter. Oh, happy, okay, 102. And we keep those secrets maybe for a lifetime, maybe forever. And we have to, because they are mysteries. They are mysteries we cannot share with anyone. They are experiences that we must keep sacred. So that's what maybe this is about. Happily, we all have need for a temple. Say that title again to see. Happily, we all have need for a temple. If I told you to go build a temple, where would you go? And what would you build? Tell that to a son or daughter. What can be told upon return? Oh, Papa, I built a temple, though I don't know what one looks like or what it's for. Oh, child, tell me of it. Papa, it is beautiful and made of sticks I found in the forest, stones I gathered from the little stream that sings to me when I am alone. Child, tell me what you do there. Papa, I sit very still and listen. Dear child, what do you hear? Papa, I love you, but I cannot tell you what I hear. Child, does it bring you joy? Yes, Papa. And then there are other mysteries in our lives that are a type of passion, and I use that in the sense of Easter. Page 20. The Passion. There is a thin woman who stands on the corner of the square, waving slowly a large flag of gossamer colored purple at the end of a long cane pole. There is a man with her who hunches over a white guitar and sings. No one listens. They implore. Their message is salvation. They return on odd weekends throughout the year. The flag waves, the guitar preaches its sermon. The two appear as the season's birds come, and as they go, the heat rises and the heat falls. Winter comes and the tree limbs are bare. They could be older than time or younger. No one seems to know. They return, they sing, the flag waves, they go away. The dark ones whose lives. Now this one, it kind of intertwines between life and death, bodies and birds, this sort of thing. So just, shall we say, flow with it. There are those few whom you will meet in your life, those whose faces float like dark stars before you. Your heart marches out and touches them, their eyes vacant, burnt out by suffering. They very well could have crawled from a hole on the side of Craig's Mountain after a deep journey we cannot know. Yet here they are. You will remember them, perhaps the only person on earth to remember them. Remember their anonymous faces. On occasion, you will weep for them, their haunted faces, the dark eyes, their hearts that once did not ache. They each are an altar upon which you may place your holy books and pour libations for the sufferings you have never had. And I write a lot about nature. We observe a lot. Last night a possum was climbing up this back screen door. I don't know what it was after, but he left, and I catch him, and I take him to the church and turn him loose. We're trying to get any members we can. But this one, I'm on buzzards. I'm going to read it too, but I'll go back and get the possums. I want to do this. I love buzzards. And there are two kinds of buzzards. There's the black buzzard and the turkey buzzard. The black buzzard is black all over, and the turkey buzzard has red, kind of like a turkey. One of them, and I've forgotten the distinction, one of them finds food by smell and the other by sight. Now, I don't know what advantage there is to that, except it keeps them all from fighting in one place, I guess. So I find that interesting. And I like the way they walk. I mean, you know, they walk around, you've seen the carcasses, and they're looking at the rear end. That is, by the way, where they start. They start with the softer stuff and move inward, and then wait for a couple of days, and it decays on up the line and so forth. But nevertheless, they're highly dignified, and I watched a flock in the backyard. I've forgotten what had happened to some creature. I think that's when that dog mysteriously died in the backyard, and I didn't want to bury it. And Catherine said, well, you know, maybe the buzzards will take us. A good idea. And sure enough, so we help them recycle a little faster than it normally would, you see. They return back to God's earth in a different fashion. But anyway, buzzards, I love them. And sometimes when you're looking at them up there, I think they are just flying because they love to fly. And if they turn just right, with the sun kind of coming low up on them, they turn perfectly silver and glisten in the sunlight. And I said, boy, isn't that a metaphor for all of us? You know, if the light's just right, we can look pretty good. But if that sun's in the back, my God, you know. Buzzards, like black-robed priests, waddling awkwardly around the dead deer, their heads bobbing in enclave about beginnings. Up high, they are like silver angels. Down here, they are custodians. They eat our friends. They are our friends. Their gut kills all bacteria. They consume the Eucharistic dead.